Hey everybody, this is Nandi coming at you with another episode of the Codename Sister podcast. I hope this episode finds you all doing well, in superb health, taking care of yourself, de-stressing from the craziness that is out there in the world. Every day, I just want you to know, every day there's going to be something else. So if you can start preparing yourself for that expectation that there's always going to be something else, but at the same time, not letting it take over your life, you are going to do well, my friends. You are going to do very well. This country is a place of chaos. It thrives on chaos, just like it thrives on placing labels on everything so that it can compartmentalize and divide, have you all in silos, feeling all privileged, thinking that you're different from everyone else, just so very different. And of course there is a uniqueness to all of us as humans, but there's also a lot of similarities. And when we let some of the superficial compartmentalizations and labels divide us, that makes it so much easier for others to conquer us. So keep that in mind as we go through 2022, plowing ahead with all the chaos that is definitely expected to come our way. America likes labels. One of the most current ones is you hear people speak a lot about narcissists. And yes, we know that there are people with these traits. We know that there are some people who have actually been diagnosed with it. We know that there are others who have certain aspects of it. And I think a great majority of people, at least here in America, probably display what could be considered a narcissistic trait. Does that make them a narcissist? No, it doesn't. But what I'm talking about is how we have labels for everything. We've got borderline personality disorder. We've got antisocial disorder. We have, what is it? Adult antisocial personality disorder, something like that. But we've got all of these things and they have their place. Okay. So I'm not going to try to take away the value of those disorders, the diagnosis, the suffering that comes out of them, especially for the people who are sometimes targets of people who have been diagnosed or undiagnosed with such maladies. But the point of it is, when you start using labels, we have to be careful that the labels don't give people a pass who don't deserve a pass. If you know what I mean. Some people are just flat out bad people. It doesn't care what type, it doesn't matter what type of medical diagnosis that they're given. They're just bad people. And there are some who receive these diagnoses and they use it as a way to escape responsibility. So we have to be careful of even using terms like narcissist a lot, because sometimes we give people a pass who shouldn't have it, because we're basically saying, well, to some degree, you can't help yourself. It's not your fault that this is what happened to you, or that this behavior that you display, is something that you're unconscious of, so you do it or whatever. When people don't treat you right, there's not enough labels out there to make up for the suffering and the trauma that comes from experiencing bad people. So I'm one of the first to say that I'm just backing off of a lot of these terms, especially since, for one, I don't have the licensing and certification to make such a diagnosis on a person. Okay, so I have to take that person where they're at. And that means that if they trash, I'm going to call them trash. Because, see, I don't need certification or licensing to say that somebody trash. I don't need it to say that they are racist. I don't need it to say that they are demonic. I don't need a license to say that somebody is a bad person, or somebody is untrustworthy, somebody is a pathological liar. I can let their behaviors speak to that. And I don't need any special schooling for that. Okay, so I think, though, when we start calling people what they are and defining people as they are, that helps us to, for one, extract ourselves from situations where we find ourselves engaging with them too much. And it also helps us to start spotting others before we have like emotional investments in them. But going back to this country, it just is, there's this thing of always naming something. And when we look at this certain group of people who are like the controlling force, I hate to say it, but I mean that's what it is. They are the controlling force, not just in America, but in other places. These people thrive on divide and conquer. So they thrive on calling people what they want to call them. I'm from that school of Erykah Badu, call us by our name. But in order to call me by my name, you have to know what I want to be called. You have to respect that I want to be called that. And you have to call me that. And I have to only answer to that. So I can't answer to all the other things that you want to call me to. I only answer to the one that I want to answer to, that I want to be called. So that's what we have to think of too. How do you want to be called? How do you want to be labeled? And then you have to make sure that people respect that and that they call you as such, or that they don't communicate with you. We hear, as black people, and I'm saying black people, and I really don't like to use that term because to me it's the absence of color, okay? Even though every color is merged in there to make black. But you know what I'm saying? It's almost like you don't exist because you're black. Like you're lacking something. You get that? By lack, you're lacking something. And I'm not fixing to try to break that down into like some spiritual connotation or something like that. But my point is, when have we ever told this controlling faction that we want to be called black? Yeah, I know people like Stokely Carmichael came out with, with the whole I'm black and I'm proud. Well, James Brown was black, but black power and stuff. But prior to that, when you look at people like even Dr. Martin Luther King, they weren't calling people black. That was something that people like Stokely came up with. Well, not, and Stokely didn't come up with it. Somebody put that in his head. Stokely wasn't an American citizen from what I remember. I think he may have been, but his parents weren't, or something like that. But he didn't have the same background with the racial difficulties that we face being born and reared in this country. He did not have that same backdrop to fall upon. So my point with that is that you don't take a foreigner and bring them in and name a group of people and that person doesn't have a tie to them in that way. You understand me? So too many times over too many decades and centuries, we have allowed other people to name us black, Negro, African American, colored people, you name it. But the one thing that they always avoid is terms like American Indian, indigenous aborigines. They intentionally do not use those words. They use other words that don't even really have a true legal basis. I mean, even when you're looking like at their constitution and which wasn't put in place for us, just being honest here, it doesn't call us who we are. It labels us as what they want to call us. And a lot of times when people use legal jargon, it's a way to separate you from certain rights and access and even respect, consideration, personhood, human, being a human worthy, being able to enjoy, like they said, life, liberty, happiness, all of those pursuits. So we have to be careful when it comes to a lot of the labeling that we don't become those people, because another reason I feel like a lot of times labels are used because it's part of a dishonest agenda, So we give you these names and ensconced in there is a bunch of lies, a bunch of deceit. Okay, so decide today what you want to be called, not what other people have decided to call you. Even African American. Okay, if you decide that's what you want to be called, then hey, you have a right to that. You know, that's you do that. But respect other people's decision not to be called something like that. Expect another person's decision not to be called black or any of the other labels that these controlling factions have sprinkled out there and use certain people to push it to the masses. And then it becomes accepted, because I cannot think of a time in my 52 years, almost 52 years, that our people have stood up as some type of cohesive or uniform unit and said, this is what we want to be called. Instead, we have allowed this controlling faction to name us and rename us at will. Similar to what happened when they decided to divide up Africa for themselves, and when they divided up America and everywhere else that they've gone and they've divided it up. You know, and when they divide, they call things to be the way they want it to be. And to stand in your true power, you have to come to the point where you call it to be. And you let people know, that's not who I am. This is who I am. Either you live with it or kiss my ass. You know? So think about that. Use that as a thinking thing. Think about it when it comes to all this medical terminology that's running around, like I said, with the possibility of excusing a lot of badass, trifling ass behavior, you know, and call it what it really is. You know, like I said, if a person is trash, that's what they are. They trash. They belong basura. You know, whatever their actions, call them by their actions. So if their actions show them to be a person who is untrustworthy, a person who is an asshole, then sometimes they need to know that you see them clearly. Now, I'm not saying y'all run around and start abusing people, you know, but those particular kind of people, you know what I mean. Don't give them a pass by just saying, oh, they're a narcissist, or oh, they a sociopath or something like that. Name the behavior. Name the trifling ass behavior that they have. Okay? So don't let them slide. This is Nandi, Codename SISTA Podcast. Y'all, this is starting to get hot and heavy. It's becoming like a fun adventure to me again, okay? So next episode is on the way. This is Nandi with the Codename SISTA Podcast. Y'all like, subscribe, rate, and review. Subscribe to me on those podcast platforms, okay? The more you guys do that, the higher my numbers grow, all right? So y'all do that. This is Nandi. I'm out.